Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Several Artemis II team members bring military and academic backgrounds that reflect a long-term federal investment in advanced education. Observers say the mission highlights how institutions like the Naval Postgraduate School translate classroom learning into real-world mission execution. Joining us from Mission Control in Houston is science writer with the Naval Postgraduate School, Dan Linehan. Dan, it is great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you for having me along, Terry.
We have all been marveling at the pictures that are coming back from the Artemis crew on their journey around the moon, and they're due to splash down tonight. But before we get to that, I want you to help us put the mission in context. What really was NASA trying to prove or learn with this flight?
Yeah, and views expressed here are my own. I'm doing this in my capacity as a career-long science writer. I think there's multiple things that they did. They have a science mission, but they also have a flight test mission. And so this is the first time that this launch system has been used with humans. It's the first time the capsule's been used with humans. And these are all new instruments. These are all new procedures that this crew of four is having to now execute. They've trained really, really hard for this. They've trained, for years, and now they're trying to execute. But the reality is they're now in space, and space is a lot different than, in simulators, on Earth.
You've been sitting there at Mission Control in Houston. What have you seen?
Well, I tell you, it's a bit surreal for me because being able to, I've been now to Mission Control 4 times and overlooking the nerve center of this mission. So every aspect of this space flight is being monitored by multiple stations throughout Mission Control. And if anybody has seen the old movies like Houston, those Houston Mission Controls, it's just like that, except a lot more modern. And now they're even bumping up the number of stations for say, for example, science. So you had asked, what is NASA trying to do? Not only are they trying to learn about how to operate a rocket to the moon and back, but they're also learning more about the lunar surface. So when it comes time to land, when it comes time to put outposts on there, when it comes time to expand beyond the moon, they're learning the necessary science that's critical, right, to keep this program going. Because without the science and without the understanding, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So this mission is, again, twofold. You have to make sure that technology is working, the operations are going, but you have to understand and set the foundation for the science that's going to continue throughout this program.
What kind of experience have you had there while you've been watching this unfold?
Well, I think one of the most spectacular experiences is being in Mission Control during this mission and actually seeing the full screen with all the operation parameters. And I was there watching the Capcom, who are the people communicating directly with the astronauts, the flight director. Now, the astronauts were asleep for most of the time, but at the very end, when they started to wake up, they played Jim Lovell's beautiful message to them, congratulating them for this space flight. And of course, Lovell has passed away. He passed away last year, so it was pre-recorded. So it was pretty bittersweet because Jim Lovell was the commander of the Apollo 13, whose record was broken on this mission. The record meaning the longest distance from Earth. And so that was a very incredible feat to have done for this mission. And I think the other fantastic experience I had was sitting in the Orion simulator. So they have a full-size mock-up of the simulator, of the spacecraft. And what it does is it does everything the spacecraft does, and it mirrors it. In fact, if they have to test something out on the spacecraft, they'll often do it there. Well, maybe the crew's asleep, and they'll test things out, and then they'll send them these procedures. So being able to sit in that chair, I was in the commander's seat, had control, full manual control, and I am able to shift around, and I was steering the moon in the middle, to the middle of the window that I had. It was fantastic. I've been in simulators before, but nothing like this. This was definitely out of the world.
I'm speaking with Dan Linehan. He's a science writer for the Naval Postgraduate School. Dan, let's bring this back to NPS because 2 of the 4 members of this crew are NPS alumni with military backgrounds. How does that combination of operational experience and advanced education prepare astronauts for a mission like this, where you mentioned they've trained for years and years, but actually being in space is something completely different?
Yeah, I think that combination of education and operational experience that we offer at NPS is vital. We prepare these officers for missions that are like this. And so what I mean is Reed and Victor are both former naval aviators. They are both former test pilots. And so when they're working in a situation like this capsule moving across space, things can go wrong. And when they go wrong, they need to be able to have that mindset of, hey, I've been here before. I've been in situations where if something goes wrong, it's life or death. And that's a really important thing. And also, being that it's a new system, they're used to pushing the envelopes of a system, knowing what they need to know, or following the different procedures in order to kind of really understand how this thing operates. So the next person who comes in is now standing kind of on the shoulders of giants type. So they've kind of done as much as they can. And so I think the education and their service as, again, test pilots and naval aviators are crucial for that. Then you come into the knowledge part of it. When you come to NPS, you're getting an advanced degree. Some people get it in space systems operations. Some get it in mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. There's all these facets, which then you can use these skill sets and this training that we have to help complete the mission, to help make sure the mission that's laid out in NASA is understood and executed, and that education is just vital to that.
It's not just training the astronauts, although I think the tally is 44 former astronauts have been through the Naval Postgraduate School, but you're also involved in the science. Tell us about how else NPS gets involved with the NASA programs.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the science, we've been participating in the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is also going around the moon at this particular time. And we had our faculty and students work out systems that helped make the maneuvering of that satellite more efficient, and it could save basically more fuel. Now, a satellite, for example, has a limited amount of fuel, and that fuel is needed to move it. And once you run out, the satellite doesn't move, and you can't image things, you can't turn it. Even the International Space Station, once it runs out of fuel, right, it can't maneuver, and it needs to maneuver. So we help figure out ways, for example, on how to help extend the life of a satellite, because it's very expensive and difficult to get to space. So that's, for example, one of our programs. And what happened for this mission is when Integrity spacecraft came at its closest approach, we had NASA had the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter try to image it. And so that data is still being transmitted and analyzed. So hopefully we'll see that soon and see maybe some great pictures taken from one, robotic spacecraft to a live spacecraft.
And how will you bring the learning from this mission back into the NPS curriculum?
Yeah, so I think what happens is there's multiple things here. So as spacecraft systems are being developed for longer duration, we are hoping that we will have the students who are going to be helping to maybe man the flight controls, maybe engineer new systems that are going to be needed for sustaining life on the moon for longer durations. There is a multitude of things that this mission is going to uncover and require great minds to figure out, so we can just keep moving forward.
And what will you be watching there in Houston on this last day of the mission as they return to Earth?
Well, I am so excited by watching the images of that capsule from when it's re-entering Earth's atmosphere, floating down into the ocean, and the Navy coming to recover the astronauts safely and the capsule. And it's amazing because the Navy did the initial training, NASA selected them, and now the Navy is coming back to again finish the mission, bring them back safely. And so I think being here at Houston, where they're eventually going to come back, I think that's just really a wonderful thing for me to be kind of, this close observer, although I'm kind of far away in a way, but I also feel like I'm kind of in the mix somewhat, reporting on this. So I think for me, that's going to be, a really special moment.
I've been speaking with Dan Linehan. He's a science writer working for the Naval Postgraduate School. Dan, I really appreciate you bringing us your on-the-ground perspective today.
Oh, Terry, again, thank you very much for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.